Hello, Patent Effect Podcast fellows. This is Mustafa. We are recording our next episode with Rob from Australia. I am really happy to host him because we were also together in Japan in LAS International Conference, and he is acting as board secretary of LAS International. So I'm really admiring his job, his expertise. So I'm really happy to host him. Hello, Rob. Welcome.
Hello, Mustafa, and thank you for this opportunity to feature on your podcast. I'm very delighted to be here. I'll introduce myself briefly to
Sure.
the listeners. My name's Rob McInnes, and I'm from Australia, and I'm based in Sydney. I've been an intellectual property lawyer since, I guess, the mid 1980s, so been doing this for rather a long time. As you say, I'm very active in Licensing Executives Society at the international level, and I've also been the Australian president of LES. And starting from, I guess, in the early 1990s, I remember going to my first LES meeting where I didn't really know anyone at all, and I can really date my career as an IP specialist from when I started to go to those meetings back in those early days. In terms of my work practice, I'm currently just enjoying being a solo practitioner. Not really looking to work full time at the moment, but I expect to be working, still pretty hard for many years yet. But I've been a partner of a couple of patent attorney firms that people might have heard of from Australia in my time, including Spruson and Ferguson, which is fairly well known in the foreign filing circles. So that's kind of my general history. By technology focus, I'm a protein chemist originally, so I do a bit of life sciences, but I expect that not many people from Turkey will say that they only work in one technology, and Australia's a bit like that. It's a relatively small market, so I tend to do work also with things like mining equipment in engineering, that kind of thing. So that's me.
So I checked your website also before our podcast. So maybe you should mention about your awards. So you are selected as one of the best IP professional from IM magazine. So
that's
IP Strategy 300.
This is true. I'm in the IAM 300 and also in the Patent 1000, where for more years than anyone else, I've been featured as the highly recommended transactions lawyer. So really most of what I do is drafting and structuring license agreements. That's my main focus, as well as doing due diligence. And these days I'm not doing as much pure drafting work with contracts, but helping people to structure them, running workshops with out licensing teams to work out what deal they want. I guess if I've got a favourite piece of work that I do, it's workshops with IP owners to decide what licensing deal they want to achieve and to work out how to argue for that deal. And I do a lot of training work as well to help people to be able to do that for themselves.
That's great. Maybe we can talk about innovation ecosystems in Turkey and Australia. Maybe we can make a comparison.
Sure.
It is quite difficult to compare these two countries, but in Turkish ecosystem, the licensing numbers from the university side, as technology transfer offices, the licensing numbers are not enough. So we are trying to push and increase these numbers. How is it going in Australia? How is the innovation ecosystem in Australia?
Sure. Well, I guess Australia is fairly good at technology transfer, but it's still, I think it is useful to compare Australia and Turkey kind of structurally, or for their place in the world. And why I say that is, Australia still isn't a huge economy by world standards. It doesn't have a big population by world standards. So in a way, we both come from countries that need to be outwardly focused. It's not like working in the US where you could be the best possible at this in this field and still only do deals within your home economy. We have to do deals that are outward looking. We have to do deals that are cross border, and so we have to kind of understand the rest of the world, understand what a deal has to look like from an American's perspective or a European's a Western European perspective to do those deals. That said, Australia, I think, could be somewhat of an example for an economy like Turkey in tech transfer. We do achieve pretty well. We've got a bit over 40 universities. Some of them are historical technical colleges that don't have as much research intensity at the others, but we have 8 universities that are seen as very much world-class, high quality, and I guess in their history as well. And from that, in Australia, we know from surveys there's about 570 people working in tech transfer offices across those universities. Most recent numbers are showing 42 startup companies in the most recent year that we've got the data for. And interestingly, those tech transfer offices in Australia secured more than 18,000 collaboration agreements and $1.7 billion in effectively research and collaboration income. So I think I did look at the comparative numbers for a presentation in the United States recently, and obviously the US has the best numbers for tech transfer. Although Israel...
From the autumn numbers, yes, I saw that.
That's
we
right.
are really admiring for...
Which is great, and Israel has good numbers as well. I think because they integrate very much with the US economy, but Australia comes in with Britain not too far behind the numbers that are at the top in terms of. I think the metric is things like licensing revenue per $100 million worth of public funded research, those kind of numbers. So
they're also used for the key performance indicators for the management of TTOs. So we are also nowadays discussing what are the best KPIs for TTOs. Also, we will discuss these terms in Bangkok in the Autumn Technology Transfer Summit next week.
Fantastic.
Yes. Also, I will also give some insights about the result of this meeting. So, do you think that these startup numbers are totally spin-off companies or independent startups?
That 42 in 1 year in Australia would be, I guess. That would be spin-outs that are in some way associated with the university. So, not necessarily that only companies where the professors are taking an active or the inventors are taking an active role, but that would be separate from licenses to industry, whether they be small or large companies.
I see. As we discussed in the session yesterday together, I would like to ask the same question to you for our listeners.
Sure.
As you know, as the technology transfer offices our main goal is create an impact from research projects, and by creating this impact, also we want to create some revenue by licensing our IP to the companies. Also, sometimes this licensing income can be generated from as a result of joint development projects between the university and companies. But in Turkey, Turkish companies are not willing to pay licensing royalties to the universities of the foreground IPs coming from joint development projects. So what is the situation in Australia or United States and other countries as a philosophy of the companies paying royalties to universities?
Sure. Look, I think tech transfer companies and tech transfer offices should try to obtain, royalties and other monies from licensing, even in transactions that also involve industry funding for research. We're very careful in Australia to try to make sure that governments don't think that licensing income is going to replace proper government funding of the universities, and you don't see universities pushing for huge royalty payments or upfronts or milestone payments. They really are trying to strike a fair balance, but a fair balance goes both ways. So my view is that if a company goes to a university because the university has got existing background IP that can feed into a project and that background IP has standalone value, then yes, there ought to be a royalty. Unless effectively the payment for the funded research is just stunningly huge, and it's intended in effect that the payment not just be payment for the research but also be payment for the underlying background IP. So I don't think universities should press for massive payments, but I don't think it should be zero either.
Yeah, we are trying to express this strategy and philosophy to companies, so it will grow. By the way, so in the joint development projects that we are doing with companies, it's mostly funded by the government. We are applying to governmental funding or fully paid by the companies. So I would like to also discuss you about the spin-offs from the universities.
Sure.
So in Turkey there are not so many spin-off companies founded by academicians by using any university-related IP. But the strategy of equity sharing, the strategy of licensing of IP, licensing options from the university to the spin-off companies should be discussed.
Sure.
So what do you suggest to universities or the spin-offs to create their IP strategy between each other?
Okay, so there's been an ongoing dialogue or argument really in Australia about technology transfer and commercialisation by spin-offs and technology transfer through licensing. And historically we've had some voices who will say very clearly that it's somehow unpatriotic to license university intellectual property to overseas companies, and that everybody should be looking to create, local Australian companies through spin-outs. So I guess the first thing that I would want to say is that it's a case-by-case decision whether a piece of technology should be commercialised through licensing or through spin-out. And even, once you have decided to commercialise through a spin-out, you need to know that you can find the right people to be involved in that. And generally speaking, academic inventors are not the people who are going to make up the business team, except in rare cases. So I'm a great supporter of spin-outs, and I'm doing a lot of them at the moment. In recent years, I've taken, or am in the middle of taking, 7 licenses just out of my old university alone, and so there's a lot of activity, but the technology has to be right. I think most university technologies are cases for licensing, but also governments need to support the creation of spin-outs when it is an appropriate case. So in Australia we do have fairly good government schemes for allowing that spin-out to be created when there is a good case for it.
So I would like to ask another spin-off related question to Europe. In Turkey also we are discussing this different strategies. As a university, we have an IP, and the inventor of this IP want to start a spin-off company.
Mm-hmm.
What is the main strategies to transfer of this IP in terms of should we license this IP to spin-off companies, exclusive or non-exclusive, or in different options, or should we assign this university IP totally to the spin-off companies? How is the strategies in Australian ecosystem?
That's a fantastic question, and of course there's always an argument. A company will say, or the promoters of the spin-off company, or the investors in the spin-off company will say to the university, we really want the security of having an assignment of the intellectual property. The university, of course, wants to be able to get the intellectual property back if the spin-off fails, because many of these ventures are going to fail. It won't be anybody's fault. It's just that that's the nature of early stage technology commercialization. So we've developed a general practice, I think, in Australia of initially licensing the intellectual property to the spin-out. Obviously, that license will be exclusive if it's key to the business, or exclusive in a field if it's a platform of some kind. So generally speaking, what's going to happen is that there'll be some kind of milestone that has to be achieved, which then gives the company an option to take an assignment of the intellectual property.
It's based on the business strategy of the spin-off company. If they
Correct.
Be successful in different milestones.
Okay. Yeah, and sometimes it's how much investment have they secured. Yeah. Other time it might be a market milestone, and then the licensed IP might be assigned to the company. Now, sometimes it won't be. For example, if it is a platform technology and the company is only commercializing one application of the platform, then the company might always operate under license. And investors will sometimes say that can't really work because the market won't like a company that's based on a license. That's not really true. Most spin-outs, for example, in the United States from universities are based on licenses, and they stay based on licenses. Just to finish the picture, typically there's also some sponsored research in that package. And so, let's say there's a 2-year program of research after the grant of the license. If the company is paying for that in full, then the company will usually own that IP, even if it's just taking a license of the other IP.
Okay. So it is totally about creating an impact, right?
Yes.
So if we talk about a benefit, or if we talk about a commercial revenue, it is totally impact. In Turkey, as technology transfer offices, we are funded by the government. So government every year asking to us, what is your royalty revenues? But they are not asking the impact.
Yes.
So can we discuss the impact versus commercial revenues. So what should be the Technology Transfer Office's strategy in creating economical value from the IP?
Absolutely. So licensing revenue, sale of shares in spin-outs, all of that, that's an important metric, but it's really not the entire picture. And so we need to keep in mind that there are many paths to impact. And we also need to keep in mind, I think, that if we only focus on the money, we're losing focus on other important things. And so, if you look at even the best universities in terms of commercialization, particularly in the United States, they might have massive licensing revenues, but their overall benefits from donations from successful alumni who've taken technologies out, they're actually going to be greater. And so the university benefits from that kind of impact, even if there was no license and it was, a couple of PhD students who left and formed a company.
Can we count this impact term as you said donations? Yes, or any funding for establishing new research centers in the university in terms of paying a royalty or paying to the students for anything?
Yes, of course, the mere fact of students being educated is impact. But if you can focus the education of students towards not just becoming professors, PhD students just becoming professors, but focusing the education or the projects of PhD students on how they might interact with industry. That's also going to lead to impact within the traditional activities of a university. And also in Australia, we kind of have an issue with very early on people making a pathway choice in their careers between academic and industry. And the engagement through a technology transfer office can sometimes help mobility between the academy and industry, and I think there's a lot of value in that. So yes, there's many ways in which impact can be achieved, and if governments just focus on licensing revenue, for example, they're, I think, losing sight of the bigger picture.
Yeah, I agree. But I don't know how can we express this strategy to funding agencies.
Yes.
Anyway, I also would like to discuss with you, Rob, about LAS International. So you are acting as board secretary
Correct.
in LAS International. Also, are you acting as another position in Australia?
I don't have a current position in Australia. I have to decide after I come off the international board. I'll have to decide what I'm going to do next, and what I'll do next could possibly involve just going back to my old state committee and sort of starting afresh.
We were in Yokohama in end of May for the annual conference, which is very crowded. Also, I feel the LAS network power very, very, very deeply, because when I join the sessions or when I join the networking sessions, all other existing members, when I meet them, firstly, they try to introduce other members for 20 minutes.
Yes.
They didn't stop. So I suddenly meet new 20 people in 20 minutes by the help of existing LAS member, free of charge.
That's right. That's right. No, look, LAS is a wonderful organisation, and we all have in our careers, many professional associations, and many of them do a great job. The thing to me that distinguishes LES is that it's an organisation where even if the people you're meeting are potentially or actually your commercial competitors. The feeling within LES of being part of a community and part of a family is to me, in my experience, always what takes centre stage. And so, when I joined, there was one of my more senior competitors in my local market who went on to become the international president of LES, and he always took an interest, always gave me a hand up, was happy to introduce me to others, and of course you also then meet LES members in other countries who can be helpful in terms of direct business networking, but also just as mentors. I would jokingly talk about a half a dozen senior LES members when I was active in my youth, as I used to refer to them as my conference uncles, because they really were like, that wise older family member who you can go to with a situation and say, hey, what do you think about this? And they then take the lead in introducing you around, as you say. So yes, I've never seen someone walk into an LES meeting, obviously not knowing anyone and just kind of stand there. Someone's always going to come up to them and say, yeah, hey, is this your first time?
Exactly.
And it's a wonderful feeling. It's a very precious history and culture that LES has.
As this kind of networking attraction, it's not usual in Turkey. That's why I think it's a cultural issue also. The United States, in the United States, this networking attraction is more casual, normal than the other countries. Maybe, I don't know. But in Turkey, it is quite difficult to engage the people in networking events. So in that philosophy, we are trying to do this networking opportunity in IP Camp. Maybe you feel that.
What do you think
about the IP Camp networking opportunities?
Look, I've been observing IP Camp, and participating in IP Camp obviously for the last couple of days, and it's just been wonderful watching the interaction among the Turkish participants in the IP community, as well as interactions with the international speakers like me. Everyone out there in the intellectual property and tech transfer and licensing world should be going to IP Camp.
Oh, thank you.
Of course, if I can say so, there is a panel of high quality international speakers, which is a fantastic opportunity, just as it's very valuable for me as an Australian to network with people who've been doing this for a long time in other larger economies. It's also going to benefit people from Turkey to understand sort of best practice in the larger economies, because these are the people who, if we do a fantastic deal, yes, for me it might be in Australia, or for you it might be in Turkey, but chances are that your fantastic career-defining deal is going to be a deal with a company from Germany or the USA or something like that, China, and so the IP Camp has got a wonderful mixture of local networking with your peers in Turkey, plus exposure to the international content and the international people. So I've made some wonderful connections. We've had a great time as well, and that's really important.
Thank you for your encouraging words. Thank you so much. So we will continue to organize this IP Camp on the following years. So thanks to LAS Network, because all of our trainers, like Europe, are from LAS network. So from their national ecosystem or from directly LAS International. So thank you so much again for being here.
It's been a great pleasure, Mustafa. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here and for the opportunity to participate in the podcast.
Thank you so much. I really learned something new also, and also taking the time with you again. And then now it's time to dinner for us. And then we need to stop here on the podcast. And thank you, Rob. See you the next time in Berlin in May.
Indeed.
The next LAS conference.
LAS International annual meeting in Berlin.
Meeting, yes.
Be there. It's not too far from Turkey this year. And
3 hours.
And it's going to be a great meeting.
Yes. Okay, let me close the podcast. Okay, thank you, Rob. It was a great opportunity to discuss with him. And guys, it is the end of this episode. And please send your comments, questions to our Twitter account, LinkedIn account, and then you can listen this episodes, Patent Effect podcast, through the Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Google Podcast. So see you next time. Bye bye.